Okay, we're getting ready to go live.
Awesome.
Live. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome in. We appreciate you joining us today. My name is Sarah Hare, and I'm the coordinator of student leadership and development here at the Chesapeake campus of Tidewater Community College. But I work with an amazing team of student life professionals to bring awesome opportunities like today's keynote to our campuses and to our community. And we want to thank you for joining us today. We not only have students from Tidewater Community College locally here in Hampton Roads, but from our sister institutions across the VCCS and the Commonwealth. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come in and help us kick off Pride Month with our keynote today. So before we get started, I do want to share a little bit of information about what Pride Month is. And it is celebrated each year in the month of June and is to honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan, which was a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States. The last Sunday in June was initially celebrated as Gay Pride Day, but the actual day was pretty flexible. And in major cities across the nation, the day soon grew to encompass a month-long series of events. And today, our celebrations include pride parades and picnics and parties and workshops and symposia and sessions just like this. And they attract millions of participants across the globe. Memorials are held during this month for those members of the community who have been lost to hate crimes or HIV/AIDS. And the purpose of Pride Month is to recognize the impact of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals that have had a impact on history locally, nationally, and internationally. And what better way to kick off Pride Month at TCC than to welcome R.K. Russell. So R.K. Russell was a professional football player in the NFL and is a social justice advocate, published poet, essayist, and artist. In August of 2019, Russell made history by becoming the first active NFL player to identify as bisexual. As decorated defensive end who has played for the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he has sacked Hall of Famers and gone up against the fiercest competitors at the height of their game. Since coming out, he has written about his experience as a Black queer man in sports for the New York Times. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. I lost my screen. Let me start over. Since coming out, he has written about his experience as a Black queer man in sports for the New York Times, The Guardian, the Los Angeles Times, Out Magazine, and Queer Majority, among others. Russell has been advocating for the LGBTQ+ community in professional supports, spearheading multiple NFL Pride initiatives, such as the NFL Pride Panel and the NFL's National Coming Out Day PSA. He has been honored by the Human Rights Campaign, by Gay Times as Sports Person of the Year, and he was selected to the prestigious Out 100 list in 2019. He lives in Los Angeles, but is joining us here today via live stream. Without further ado, Mr. R.K. Russell.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
So the floor is yours. I'll pass the mic to you.
Awesome. Well, I would like to start by thanking everyone at Tidewater Community College that made this possible, everyone who's tuned in right now, and all the multiple organizations that made me being here via the internet possible. So thank you all. I would also like to start by commemorating a cousin of mine that was lost in the mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, Catherine Macy. May she and the other victims of that heinous crime rest in peace, and may us all find a way to move forward to a better, more connected society. I, love that this segment started with kind of defining what Pride is, and I would love to expand on that celebration and on that this month and this moment and what it means, not just to me, but hopefully to everyone here. And if I bring up something that you haven't heard or that you haven't thought of, please, I beg for you to take it with you, to ponder it, to try it, and to have these conversations. Pride Month, well, first, the LGBTQ+ community is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful entities in the world, because we encompass people of all different backgrounds, of all different genders, of all different sexualities, of all different colors, races, religions, ethnicities, and parts of the world. Our community, our family has love and support for each other and fights for each other. And it is, to me, the microcosm of what I hope that America could be, what I hope that this nation could be, what I hope that the world could be. So there's so much power in the LGBTQ plus community, in its individuals and in it as a whole. And I hope that anyone listening or watching this, a part of this community, whether you are out and proud, or whether you are figuring out, or whether you are closeted, I want you to know that there's strength in you, there's strength here with you, there's love here for you, and I celebrate you and your story and your journey as well. Pride isn't just about the rainbow flags and the good times and the marches. Pride is started out as a riot. Pride is about human rights. It's about protecting trans kids. It's about healthcare for all. It's about women having the right to choose what they do with their bodies. It's about intersectionality and celebrating that. And at the end of the day, it's about loving ourselves so much that we don't want to compromise for anyone else. The opposite of pride, or I feel like why pride is even a celebration, why we even need to come out as queer people, as LGBTQ plus people, is that the opposite of that is what we experience most of our life, which is shame. Going a little bit through my story, I was born in Buffalo, New York, to a single mother. At that time, she was not a single mother. I had a stepfather who raised me. His name was Tim Thompson, and he passed away tragically when I was at the age of 7 in a motorcycle accident due to drunk driving. And the world at that point was introducing me to shame, in a sense. You know, it was frowned upon to be a single mother. It was frowned upon to be a child from a single parent home. And I experienced that very young in grade school. You know, my mother not being able to come to conferences because she had to work 2 jobs, or me not having a male figure in my life as a young Black man, that was frowned upon. And, you know, I started to let that shape who I was, because as a young person, and really, I think as people in general, we thrive off connection. We thrive off love. We thrive off of human connection and compassion, and being seen and being loved and being valued. And when you're introduced to shame at such a young age, you change yourself, or you adapt to the situation so that you can tap back into that love and that connection. Oh, if my uncles, you know, don't like me because of this, I'll just do this, and then they will. And you adapt. So at a young age, I was introduced to that through grief and through loss. Also, as a kid, I didn't know what death really was. So handling all of those experiences and losing a parent was something that continued to unpack and unfold for me. My mother thought it best to change locations. That's how I got to Dallas, Texas, where I fell in love with football and with sports. It was the first time as a young child who spent a lot of time alone, where I had a locker room full of brothers and teammates, where I had coaches who were kind of like male figures to me. And I was being celebrated for gifts and talents and abilities that I had and that I worked at to harness into home. Texas was also a pivotal point in my life because as a young Black man, it was the first time I experienced racism. And, you know, to equate shame and race together is something I could do, but that does not fully encompass what racism is, the hate and the ugliness of racism, as well as what I experienced and what many people like me that look like me and look unlike me, all marginalized people experience. And in those moments, you know, to see that people could hate me, or could think, you know, little of me, or could stereotype me, or could, you know, do all these things to me just based off of who I was and how I was born and the way that I looked, was very eye-opening. You know, that was a shame I could do nothing about. I could not change my skin to make myself lighter. I couldn't change my ethnicity, where my family had come from. You know, I was stuck in this place where my life was then looked as less than. I was looked at as subhuman, and there was nothing I could do about that. The way I coped as a young boy was to try to then excel at the things that I could do. I tried to play better. I tried to be smarter. I tried to, you know, be respectful. I tried to be the best brother, the best friend, the best boyfriend, all of these things. And I was so concerned about making other people proud, about eliminating the shame in my own life, who I was. I wasn't really falling in love with myself. I wasn't giving myself that organic moment and expression to learn what I liked, just for me, not maybe what my teachers thought would like, or what colleges would like, or what my coaches would like, but what I liked. I didn't have those moments as a young man in Texas. And I just put everything into football because I found that people respected that. My manhood wasn't questioned when I played football. My Blackness wasn't questioned when I played football. My sexuality wasn't questioned. It was all kind of there for me in this one avenue, in this one thing, in this one entity. So I prized it as much as other people prized it. I prized it more than I prized myself. And, once I got a scholarship to go to Purdue University, a Big Ten university, I thought that I would feel this weight lifted, that I would feel like I was no longer constantly under attack, that I was no longer constantly being watched, that I wasn't the child from the single parent home who fell into the prison system, or who got into drugs, or who didn't get to college, or who perpetuated a cycle that the Black community has been thrusted upon us, both systemically and both by people's ideologies and views and treatments of us. But two, I felt like it was my duty to defeat racism, to transcend the stereotype. Looking back, obviously, that's not how racism works. If that is the case, then it would not be a thing today. But that was my thoughts, and those were my feelings. And when I got to college, I thought this weight would be lifted. And the opposite happened. I was under more of a microscope. I started getting attention from NFL scouts. The academics got harder. I was now far away from my family, in a place where, if I did want to see people that looked like me, if I did want to see Black people, they weren't family. I couldn't just call my cousins up. I couldn't just go to my mother. I couldn't just, be around that source of me and of who I am, that part of me. So it was increasingly difficult. Also in college was the first time as a bisexual man where I started to question my sexuality. I had had girlfriends all through high school and growing up, and, never felt anything was amiss or anything was wrong. I never felt like, I had to be someone I wasn't to be with them necessarily. But in college, when there was kind of no one around I knew, and I could be whoever I wanted, the interest and the attraction to men became to a point where I could not ignore it, where I couldn't just go along saying I was straight. Another thing that's important to me about Pride is the educational part, because at that time I didn't know bisexuality was a thing. I was always told bisexuality was a transition. I was always told, it was about people who were afraid to say they were gay, or people who were ashamed, shame becoming a word that I was quite familiar with. So there was a moment of introspection where I had to think and wonder, okay, well, if I am turning gay, which is crazy to say now, maybe I can stop this. Like, maybe I can just not do this, and I'll just be straight, and I'll just play football, and everything will be fine. I had my first encounter with a man, my first intimate encounter with a man in college, and thought maybe that would clarify it. Maybe I would try it and it would be really weird. And I'd be like, okay, no, I'm straight. But that wasn't the case. But it also wasn't better than being intimate with a woman in the heteronormative ways. So much confusion. And while I'm in the middle of this as a young 19-year-old, 20-year-old, trying to just figure out, what am I? What is this? What is the world? My coach tells me then that there are NFL scouts looking for me, and that I can enter the draft, and that all of my dreams come true, and all of my hard work for these years can be, realized. And in my mind, I had a choice. I could either do this self-discovery and figure me out for probably the first time in my whole life outside of a sport, or I could do what I always did. I could just sacrifice everything and bleed into football and bleed into that career, and it would finally pay off. And maybe the college step wasn't the relief I wanted, but maybe the NFL step will be. Maybe that's what I was waiting for. I also wanted to take care of my mother, who sacrificed everything to raise me by herself. And I wanted it. I do love football. I did then, I do now. And it was just too much to risk for something that at that point I didn't know was even a valid identity or sexuality. So I chose football, of course. Once again, putting myself on the back burner. Once again, valuing other people's opinions of me, now NFL owners, coaches, and scouts' opinions of me over my opinion of myself and my value of myself. So I was drafted in 2015 to the Dallas Cowboys. I got the opportunity to go back home and play for my hometown team, which, you know, on the outside looking in, I was achieving all of the dreams. I was beating all of the statistics. I should have been the happiest I had ever been in my life. And I wasn't. People were happy for me, way happier for me than I was for myself. You know, I was able to take care of my mom, which is what I wanted to do. I was able to do these things to play at the highest level, but I wasn't really happy. And once again, the weight of what I was starting to realize was my own shame, my own secrets, and my own identity and my burden did not come off once I got to this next level. There was no moment of relief. There was no fresh air. If anything, I was deeper, I was drowning, and I was giving out, honestly. And that caught up to me as a friend, that caught up to me as a son, that caught up to me as, you know, a brother, and obviously that caught up to me as a football player. I struggled in Dallas just trying to prioritize football in my career and ignoring my own joy and health and really mental wellness. So I struggled in every failure that I had in the NFL. Every time I didn't make a tackle or I got blocked or I didn't run a play right, felt devastating to me, because at that point I was like, this is literally all I have. Like, I'm no one without this. I'm nobody outside of Ryan Russell, the football player. I need to be perfect. Once again, I need to transcend every expectation. I need to be beyond human, which, like I said, looking back is ridiculous because we're all human. We all make mistakes, and that's what happened. But it was so, everything was so volatile to me then. Everything was so heightened. And I eventually got injured in Dallas. I was released and let go. And once again, I found myself kind of in that same pivotal moment I was in college. It's like, okay, football right now is saying no to me. I was very confident that that wasn't going to be forever. I was young. I was in great shape. I was a good player. You know, I was like, maybe it's time for me to start feeling the me well a little bit so I could pour back into football. So I went to go hang out with my best friend, Joseph Gilliam. We were roommates in college. We played defense together. We both started together. We worked out together. We went to class together. We talked all the time. I introduced him to his wife. They got married. I was the best man at the wedding. So I was like, I'm going to hang out with my best friend. You know, we're going to train. We're going to stay focused, but we're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time. So we do. And, you know, I get signed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers around this time, which is great because I show up and I'm hungry and I'm pissed. And I'm like, okay, I need to make this work. I need to show I'm a great football player, because if I can do nothing else in my life, I can do that. So I make the team. I join practice squad. I move up from practice squad. I start. I sack Russell Wilson, which is like a huge thing for me because he whooped my ass in college. Sorry for the curse words. Because he beat me in college. So that was huge. It was coming together. I had my best friend. We were close. I was kind of trying to get back into my family life and, you know, be a person. I was then having success on the field, and I was like, this is good. At that time, I knew more about bisexuality, and I was comfortable with the term identifying me, but I also was comfortable being in a relationship with women. So I was like, I'm just going to do that. If I kind of have this superpower to do both, I'm just going to do that. And 2017 came around, the year that I was poised to start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in my third year in the NFL. And it was all going to be, the game was slowing down. I was starting to get it. You know, I was finally kind of leveling up in my opinion. That's also the year that my best friend, Joseph Gilliam, is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, which we find out on a birthday trip actually of his to New York City. So once again, it felt like I should be happy. You know, I was starting, I was playing well. Um, I had people around me that did love me. I should be happy. Uh, but Joe, who also was one of the only people to know that I was bisexual or that I was questioning my sexuality, um, he was dying. And everything in my life, all of the stuff that I worked so hard to obtain and to achieve, my career, all of these things seemed really, really empty. You know, I remember texting him about chemo treatments before I'm going into games and getting out, and hearing about him having seizures or throwing up or being sick. I went to go visit him during the season one time because we had a scare where we thought he was going to pass, but he didn't. And I missed some practices and I came back. I also got injured this year, which is no surprise looking back at it because I was exhausted. I wasn't sleeping. I was constantly worried about my friend and about my career. Um, and what was poised to be the best year of my life, you know, quickly became the worst year of my life. And then the shoulder injury that I suffered in 2017 got came to the end of the year and I had to get surgery. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my contract was also up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they looked me in the eye after a year of sacrificing my literal body and shoulder. They told me that they couldn't sign me back because they didn't know how I was going to recover from that horrific injury. So I had my surgery, and the rehab was a year to get back. Also, in this time, Joe passed away in 2018. And I was lost. I didn't have football. I now didn't have my best friend. So that kind of personal life hole was ginormous. And you know, that was the darkest moment of my life. And I knew that I had really no decisions in my mind. I had two decisions, but one was not an option for me. So the other decision was to try to make my life worth something and mean something, not in the sense of the monetary or the career or the achievements that I had, because I had done that and that didn't work. But in the sense of if we can all be taken away, if my best friend can literally be here one day and be gone, and you know, if I were to get sick or if I were to be hurt or if football were to be taken away, you know, I want to be happy. Like my time here isn't promised. My life isn't, you know, I don't know how much time I have left. I just know that I have less every moment that passes. And I never want to get to a point where something's taken from me and I feel like I have nothing. I never want to lose football and feel like I'm no one. I never want to experience grief and question every decision I've ever made in my life. I didn't want that. So instead of, you know, pouring into a friendship or a person or getting in that direction or a relationship, I decided to just sounds funny, but kind of date myself. I decided to get to know myself. I decided to take care of myself and treat myself and do things that I liked. The first thing I did was move to LA. I literally packed up my Jeep, I think a couple of days after the funeral, and just drove to LA. I signed the first lease that I found, which, you know, I had the privilege of playing the NFL, so I could do that. I know that this part of this journey is going to get really crazy and weird and extreme. And I know everyone's journey is not like this, but just bear with me. So I moved to LA. I took time to write poetry, which is something I had always done as a young kid, but never shared because I was a Black man and a football player. And I was supposed to be this tough, masculine guy. And poetry just wasn't that thing. But I did it. And I didn't only just do it here. I shared it and I went to open mics and I met people, and I met artists, and I met men who were creative, who were artistic, who were sensitive, who were also straight or who were bi, who were gay, who were trans, who were all this spectrum of what manhood could be and what really life could be like. And there was some moments of creation, of genuine me sitting in silence, or me hiking, or me going to the beach, or me just at a coffee shop. And I felt desires to do things, passions, or things that I never felt before, because I had harnessed all that energy towards football. And there was also a moment of curation, which is fine, which is a beauty of the LGBTQ plus community, which I found to love. I could see people doing things that I never in my mind thought I could do. I was like, let me try this. Let me take a little bit of this. Let me do this. And if I didn't like it, there was no shame or no reason to stick with it. It wasn't like the kid showing up to practice where his dad was like, you're going to play regardless of whether you like it or not. It was just me. And I could try painting one day and say I suck and I hate it, and not do it again the next day. Try something else. It was a beautiful time, really, to just get to know me. Obviously, I dealt with grief. I had a stint where alcohol became very dangerous to me in my battle with grief and in my need to subside this pain, that regardless of how much I was loving myself and learning myself and getting to know myself, I knew I would always miss him and I would always love him. He would always be, a pivotal part of me. And at the moment of all this, not even, I think it was 8 months after Joe had passed, I moved to LA, I met Corey O'Brien, who is my now long-term partner, boyfriend, whichever phrase works for everyone. I like the phrase boyfriend because at one moment, me saying boyfriend was like a terrifying thought to me. And now I'm like, I can say it's my boyfriend. I just say it all the time. And I met him, and he was very confident and strong and independent, and he knew nothing about football, which was great. And it was my first time really introducing someone to not the new me, but really like the true me, the me that I had taken time to know and be confident in, like, hey, this is who RK Russell is. Also, the name changed in that time. I went from Ryan to RK because there's way too many Ryans in the world. No offense to any Ryans out there. But that's how that happened. And I told him everything. I told him about Joe. I told him about me being bisexual. I told him about me being in the closet at the time. He's still wanting my NFL career and me, all these things. I just laid it all out on him, literally on a coffee date in the middle of the day in Hollywood. And I thought, this man's never going to speak to me again. And after that, he told me about himself, and, we talked back and forth, and he was like, okay. And I was like, all right, when are we doing this again? And he was like, what about, we could do it tomorrow. And it was just right. And yes, it was because him, and he's the right person, and he's amazing. I'm never going to take anything away from him. But it was also because I was in a place to receive that type of love. I was in a place to receive, support and encouragement. And that same kind of connection I made with him, I found I could make it in different ways, but with other people, with people in my life, when I introduced the real and true me to my mom, to my friends, to an NFL team, to all, everyone, I opened myself up to receive genuine love and compassion, genuine care, someone to see and know me and be proud of me. And if you have shame or negative feelings or anything towards me, I no longer internalize that. That's your thing. I don't care. You deal with that over there. Get out my mentions. You're blocked. Bye. But when you're proud of yourself, when other people know you and they're proud of you, that takes everything to a whole nother level. And that is why I share my story to this day. That is why I still write poetry. That's why I work with the NFL in hopes of changing the way that they look at sexuality. Because as we know, in homophobia, in biphobia, in racism, in misogyny, and all these things, sexism, silence and complacency can also be kind of like an accomplice to these things and to these tools used to hurt people. But I walked into places just being me and doing what I want to do and trying to inspire and create change. If not for me, for you, if not for you, then for the little boy 15 years ago that needed this, for the guy lost his best friend, for the guy who lost football and thought he was worthless, for that person, for the future, for my kids to be whoever they want to be, whoever they're meant to be, whoever they're born to be, and still be happy, still experience joy and love. So that's is what pride means to me. That's kind of how my journey, I think, plays into what I'm doing now in the future, which we can talk more about in this next segment if people are curious or want to know. And I hope that you look at yourself in the mirror and you feel proud of who you see and you love who you see. And if you don't, if there's questions, and that fluctuates with all of us, get to know yourself. Be silent with yourself, sit with yourself, treat yourself, talk kindly to yourself out loud. It sounds crazy, but I do it all the time. Literally feed yourself with an abundance of unrelenting love and compassion. Forgive yourself. Whatever you did in the past, it doesn't have to be who you are today. It doesn't have to inform the decisions you make in your future tomorrow. Unpack your trauma, build your relationships, deal with the things that have affected you so they don't inform the next part of your life. Literally be kind to yourself. Also celebrate yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Your past isn't perfect, but you know what? You were doing the best that you can do at that time. I truly believe that. And if you're to a point where you're out, where you can celebrate, where you can be with people like you with similar journeys or completely different journeys, do that. Because those people aren't just outside validation, they're mirrors. And you can see yourself in them. Hopefully you can see yourself in me. And you can be like, oh my God, I did that too. I should celebrate that too. Or I've done something similar to that. And I love you. If you're in a place where you are unsafe being who you are, or you don't feel loved, know that there are people out here, myself and way more talented people than me, changing that for you, working to make this world a better place for you, and that we love you and we see you and we celebrate you. And thank you, Tidewater Community College, for having me. I might have went over time, but that's my thing. And I'm just really happy to be here celebrating Pride Month with you all.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We do have some questions. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So in particular, you talked a little bit about, first off, I just want to say, real talk, I'm not crying, you're crying. Okay, that was tough. I don't think I could have done it, so kudos on that. But we do have a question from students talking about, you talked about the fact that, in your journey, in your process, you just got to this point where you were saying, you know what, that's not defining me anymore. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. What helped you process that? Like, coming out is terrifying for many people. So what are some of the realities of that? And what helped you face your fears in regards to that? Did you just get to the point where you were like, it is what it is, and you're just going to take me as I am? Or were there other things that helped play into that?
For me, it was at some points a very slow, gentle process, like coming out to my best friend and kind of testing the waters and seeing how people that I loved and that loved me and respect me would kind of take that. I know that's a route for a lot of people, and that helped me in that sense of kind of dipping my toe in and being like, oh, okay, the water's okay here. This is fine. The other side of my journey is when I lost that person, when I lost kind of that avenue, then everything to me was kind of like a mode of survival in a sense. It was also a perspective shift. Grief shifts perspective. I started seeing like everything that I was worried about in coming out, I wasn't worried about it. I was worried about what other people thought of it. I was worried about how it would affect my job, how it would affect my family, how it affects, the people I met in the future, my opportunities, all these things. I never really worried about me in a sense. I was like, I had been in relationships at that point with men, or intimate moments with men at that point, and the world didn't end. Fire didn't rain from the sky. People couldn't see it on my face when I walked out and started, throwing things at me. Like, it wasn't like that. So when that perspective shift change, it happened very fast. I would also be amiss to say if my boyfriend didn't help. He definitely did. Being in love and realizing how pure and good that is, and then realizing you can't share it, or you haven't, allowed other people to know the side of you, share one of the greatest parts of yourself with everyone was a big catalyst as well. So coming out, it's a journey, but I can say one thing for sure. I swear on my life that regardless of who or what you lose in coming out or what you risk, life after coming out is so much better than life before it, because the whole time, anything that you build while you're in the closet or while you're not out, you feel burdened, you feel a shadow, you feel a weight, and you feel like it could be taken away from you in a blink of an eye. I know now that everything I have and the people that love me and the people in my life, they know me. They know the great parts of me, the not so great parts of me, the achievements that I have, the accomplishments I have. They're mine, and no one can take those from me.
Yeah. So in regards to that, like you talked about that community that's around you, and having a good circle in your space, like that really helps, I think, just in general, right? So what role did your allies play in you coming out? And in particular, do you have any advice for a parent who has a child who's coming out?
Of course, I would say my allies and the people in my life, both a part of the LGBTQ plus community and not, were huge support to me and are a huge support in any movement that the community and that we all want to make in the future. No movement was actualized without allyship. And LGBTQ plus people, women, Black people, people of color, people of different religions, they didn't create the systems built to oppress them. So it shouldn't be their job to dismantle those same systems. We should all do it together. So that's a huge part of allyship. And there's a term that we use in the LGBTQ plus community called chosen family. And it is extremely important because a lot of people who love like me and look like me do lose family, do lose support, do lose loved ones. But know that there is not just really a safety net, but a paradise or a I don't even know, like a cornucopia of people willing to give you 10 times that love and support and generosity and care. And there was another part to that question. Parents.
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God. So I have 30 this year, and I've finally come to the decision that I also want to be a parent. And I get really emotional just thinking about being a parent. But I would say that moment that your child was born and they were perfect and innocent and yours and of you and not of you and of the universe, and when they laughed at you and when they hugged you and when they giggled and when they said your name, all of those feelings, all those joys, not only are still there and are still true when your child comes out, but you kind of get to go through it all over again. You get to hear, your child tell you who they are and introduce you to that part of them and to love them and to see them and to hold them all over again. So I would say, the education will come. If it's if there's a change of pronouns, if there's, partners come around that you didn't know, or it's like, okay, now my little girl wants a girlfriend, I just don't know. All that stuff will come. All that stuff is trivial. All that stuff you will figure out because you love your child, because your child wants you to know all of those things about them. Just focus on the love. And all anyone in my position or anyone in any position wants is love and support. Focus on the love. All the other things will come. You'll grow with your child. And you'll learn.
That's a great mantra. Focus on the love. It's a great one. Another question that we received from students was asking, what advice do you have for other people of color, specifically men that are part of, Black men in particular, that are part of the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah, for me, there was a lot of misinformation, some in the Black community, a lot outside of the Black community, but with the Black community as the lens, like there's a lot of kind of, in my experience, myth around how the Black community and how Black men view and treat LGBTQ plus Black people and queer Black people that I found now in my lived experience to not be so true. But I will say for me, a huge part of it was just therapy. A huge part of it was getting outside of my own mind and really even my own family or community or place I was born, and hearing other perspectives, hearing other experiences, hearing other stories, analyzing it, then back over my trauma and my experience. And also seeing the world, honestly. There's a lot of people who are still in the towns that they were, that they grew up in. And like I said, part of that comes with, privilege and funds and financials and money to like do that. But a great way to travel for almost free is to buy a book, to rent a book from the library, to read about times before this, to read about places other than this, to get out of your own mind and to have experiences. The internet can be a good tool when used properly to do that as well, to see and to learn and to experience things. There's so much connectivity in this world today that oftentimes is used for negative, and it can be used for positive. I would also say, that Black people, Black men also, we have so much on our plates in this world and in this day and age. A lot of it which threatens our life and our livelihood. Don't let your perception or your minds or your own thoughts of who you are, who you should be another thing to that list. Don't be another enemy to yourself. We have enough enemies in this world. So don't do that.
That's a powerful statement, very much so. So you referenced this earlier in regards to like your journey, your process, and trying to figure out where, like what category, air quote category, you wanted to provide yourself. And we had a question about a lot of people say, quote, bi guys are just gay guys who can't admit the truth, end quote. What would you say to someone who identifies as bi but doesn't feel they have to be gay?
Yeah, I mean, my identity and really specifically that label is really for me. I mean, it is, I think, a great caveat to one, get community and meet other people who identify in similar ways and have those shared experiences, connections. But it's really for me. It's really so I don't have to, explain kind of the nuances of my whole human existence or my relationship dating past, or people have sexual questions and I'm like, that's weird because I don't want to get sexual with you when you're asking me these questions. So I mean, labels are great for the things that they're great for. They also obviously fall short. Bisexuality is a spectrum. There's also terms like pansexuality, which once I was introduced to and I got familiar with, I was like, oh, I could have easily come out as pansexual, but I didn't. And I like bisexual. So that's where I'm at. And there's like this weird conspiracy also. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off track. That like there are people who are choosing or hiding. Or what. If I wanted to go an easy route, or if I wanted to go an easy, I wouldn't call myself bisexual. That's not an easy route. That's not like a. People are like, oh, you're playing it safe, because no, there's no safety in that. Like, if anything, you open yourself up to criticism from your own LGBTQ plus community and criticism from cisgendered heteronormative people. So I would say don't focus on other people. Label you for you and for the people who see it and understand it and see themselves in you and connect to it. There's community there. And don't worry about other people. It's easier said than done, but literally turn your phone off. Like, get off social media, delete it. If your friend is saying that to you, they're no longer your friend. Like, find other friends. We can filter our life. I know y'all into filtering pictures. You can filter your life. You can filter the people that you let in it and the words and the things you see. You should. It'll help.
Oh, the filters. That's a whole other conversation, right? So great response on that. And we did have a question here about where can students, people, anybody find out more about your activism? And do you have a foundation or any social media where we can follow or support the work that you are doing?
Yes, there's more. If you're wanting more career things, I announced a memoir through ESPN, Disney, Anscape Publishing, coming out fall of this year, The Yards Between Us. So look out for that. But if you're into more of that part of my life, op-eds I've written for New York Times, The Guardian, things I'm still writing, panels or discussions like this, you can go to my website, rkrelentless.com. That's RK, it's in my name, and then relentless.com. And you'll have all that information there. Also, all my everything is there. Social media wise, I only have Instagram and Twitter under the same handle, RK Relentless, at RK Relentless. That is all that I have. If you see me on anything else, Facebook, Tinder, all these things, report it. That is not me. report. But yeah, those 3 places, the easiest way to find me.
Okay. Yeah, it's sad that we have to say that, but I totally understand. We have a question here about what are some of the ways that colleges can promote LGBTQIA plus on their campuses
Yes.
and through awareness events, etc.?
I think it would be amiss for me to not say things like this, having people come in and speak and share their stories and share their experiences, because as crazy as my story is, I know there are stories out there that are crazier. I know there's stories out there that are different. I know we all need to hear different things from different people. So opening up the campus and inviting people to come and speak and share those experiences is huge. I think also just being mindful of the day-to-day things. That's another thing that I love about Pride. Like, there are all these big campaigns, but it is also just like an extra care and look at day-to-day life for LGBTQ plus and queer people. Something as small as pronouns, something as small as language, something as small as like being more inclusive in, your introduction with people and talking to people. Don't, assume that guys have girlfriends and girls have boyfriends. Like, very little things like that actually bring a lot of just kind of like safety to people in our community. And also, there are initiatives that I think need to be extended throughout the year and not just in the month. Having a gay straight alliance, or having an organization, or having an LGBTQ plus center, and having those resources, mentorship, people to speak with about the experience on campus. A place for us to go, a physical place for us to go on campus is huge. Even if it's just a freaking, on Thursdays at 2:00, it's this little classroom. That's great. That is a huge part. What else? There's so much stuff. I mean, and also just letting the students and letting people know what you're doing year round for the community. Outside of just Pride Month, like what does our campus have in terms of resources or events or things like? And there's so much intersectionality in our community. There's no reason that we can't be celebrated or that represented in 12 months out of the year in so many different ways. So those are some little thoughts.
That part. So kind of interesting question. How will you be celebrating Pride Month? Do you have any plans?
Oh my God, yes. Well, I'm going to a wedding. I'm in one of my friends' weddings. So that is a big way to celebrate. I get to do a little more of these speeches and these talks and these discussions with people, which honestly is my favorite thing to do, because if I would have stumbled on something like this when I was in college, oh my God, it would help me so much. So that's huge. Me and my boyfriend love food. So we're probably going to go out and have like a nice meal one of these days. We also like met around this time. So we'll have our little anniversary dinner. And yeah, spend time with my family. Really, that's how I celebrate anything. Good food and good people. Like, that's all I need in my life. It's LA. It's beautiful. I can go to the beach. I'm very, very, very fortunate.
Being a foodie is always a great life plan, I think. So there's that. So I think the last question that I have, and to be honest, we're not entirely sure about the context of it, so I'll just give it the best shot you can. The question is, how can we be more supportive of individuals in the LGBTQ community without our own sexual orientation becoming an issue?
Oh, an issue. That's interesting. I'm assuming I'm assuming straightness being an issue.
That would be my assumption as well,
I,
but
I
we're
think
going with what we got.
the joking part of me is wants to be like, straightness will always be an issue, but the more serious side of me and the diplomatic side of me is, don't get derailed in your mission to bring inclusivity and love and really life-saving and affirming action to a community that has been attacked, belittled, marginalized, oppressed, beaten, murdered. Don't let kind of this own little side battle or concern, derail you from your mission, which is to uplift a group and a group of people from that, to save lives, essentially. If you're allying to our community and someone wants to talk about your straightness, just recenter our community. Like, okay,
Yes.
people can have their own thoughts of your sexuality, but it's like, that's not what we're talking about. It's kind of, I see it all the time in social media, and people get off on these tangents and they like go separate ways, and you lose what the conversation is all about. Just decentralize yourself. And if people want to centralize you, just centralize the community. You can show up in a room and talk about LGBTQ plus people and rights and inclusion and be there and be supportive and be an ally. Never talk about yourself. It can happen. I know we're in a society where, We think the world always wants to know what we think and wants to know our lives, and there's a part of that. Your family probably do, but you can not talk about yourself.
Yes.
You can just
Yes.
not make it about you. There's a way to not make things about you, and that's the biggest thing. I love getting on here. I will ally for specifically right now prioritizing Black trans women and trans people and trans youth being attacked by sports and by politics. I will ally to trans people all day, every day, without ever talking about myself. And if someone wants to talk about me, I will always bring it back to what I am there to do, which is to support and uplift and celebrate and save trans people. So just do that. Recenter the community.
I love it.
Don't talk about yourself. Yeah.
I love it. So from some thank yous from chat that we wanted to share with you. Dr. Claudine Kazart here at the institution, she says, thank you for your voice. As the director of DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion here at TCC, she appreciates you for sharing your truth in such a compassionate way. Miss Maya Johnson says that they love the idea of having another opportunity to experience the wonder of your child as they come out. That was such a really great way to word that. Jordan Barnes is sharing that they say it's nice to see such an influencer that reflects my appearance and topic viewpoints. Thank you for sharing your story and being a pioneer for others.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and we also have an alumni voice. So we reached out to a super friend along the way that used to go to Tidewater Community College. He's very prominent in the LGBTQ plus community in Charlottesville. And I asked this, telling him, I'm helping with this event today. And he says, please pass my personal thanks to Russell. Please, please, please. He says his coming out was huge, not only for men in the community, but bisexual people everywhere. When he came out, it gave me a resource when sharing examples of bisexual people in my lectures and safe space trainings, but more importantly, as validation. Yes, we need it from time to time, that we are all on this beautiful spectrum of love, and being a slightly different shade is what makes it most beautiful. I'm so thankful he chose to live authentically, and as if he doesn't already have enough supporters everywhere, I'm proud to be in his corner.
Oh my God, so amazing. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Everyone who had anything nice to say, anyone who's watched, thank you to everyone who put this together. It's been the best way to start my Pride Month.
Awesome. It has been an awesome opportunity for us as well. We wish you the best. We hope you enjoy all of the food and the celebrations and the memories that you will make throughout Pride Month, and continue to be you as authentically as you can.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You too.
Thank you. All right. RK, have a blessed one.
Thank you. Y'all too.